Hello my fellow simmers, aviators, explorers, and aficionados of all things awesome. I'm Nick and this is MSFS Flight Plans, a place you go when you're just sick and tired of not knowing enough stuff. If my voice sounds just a hair deeper than usual, it is because I'm getting over a case of complete laryngitis, which only lasted about 24 hours, thankfully. But all that aside, this is the second trip of our Los Angeles tour, and if you haven't seen the first one, please be sure to check that one out when we're done. I've even gone back and watched it a couple times because it is that interesting. But mostly just to check out that Six Flags add-on, which was unbelievable. So you can see we're in a different helicopter today, and I won't insult you by suggesting that anyone needs an explanation for why I picked it. Yes, that is LAPD livery I've got on there. And yes, we are going to take off from a law enforcement facility. This is the LA County Men's Jail, which isn't too far from where we landed on that last trip. There's the US Bank Tower in the background there. And we're going to land about 8 miles south of here at a Sherriff's substation by the Hawthorne Airport, and I'll show you a quick little glimpse at the Google map before we get in the air. But we've got about 50 miles to cover before we get there because there is all kinds of stuff to see out here. And if you're curious about precisely which chopper we're flying, this is the InSim Bell 407. I really wanted to fly the Cowan Sim 206B, but I had to get every little ounce of performance I could get out of the aircraft we selected. And being the default one in the sim, this one was just a little bit lighter, so we'll get back in that 206 for one of the other trips. And if you're wondering why the heck we started way out here with the engines on, which is not my usual operating procedure, once I turned the engines off, I couldn't get it started back up again. Tried several times, watched some tutorials, it just was not working. So we're starting with it on. You know, when you start on a helipad, it won't start with the engines off, so we're just dealing with it. And it'll save us a couple minutes, so that's totally cool. Alright, before we get going, let me show you the map. I know I didn't show it on that last flight, but as I was rewatching that, I thought, you know, anyone who hasn't flown over this before and is not from the area might have benefited a little bit from knowing where we were going. So now we're taking off. So here's where we landed last time, and we may get some pictures popping up as I hover over these things. The US Bank Tower where we landed last time was right about here. We're in this vicinity right now, so what we're going to do is take off here. We'll see Dodger Stadium on the right side of our aircraft this time. We saw it on the left as we were coming in for approach on the last trip. Come up here to Hollywood Boulevard, cruise down this way, in between Hollywood and Sunset Boulevard, which is right here, this next one down. The Sunset Strip will be right over here. We're going to come down along this way, check out the UCLA campus, cruise around this way, and then come up here and see the Getty Museum. The Playboy Mansion, if we could see it, which unfortunately really can't, but I'll show you where it should be. It's going to be right around here. We'll cruise up by the Getty over here, cruise over Brentwood, down to Santa Monica, check out the pier, Venice Beach, the original Muscle Beaches, Marina del Rey, which looks fantastic in the sim. I'll tell you more about that when we get up there. Head along this little water canal as we come up here and check out some more big studios. And I just noticed that Museum of Jurassic Technology. That sounds amazing, but I didn't look to see what that was. Hopefully it's not a big site that we're going to miss. Come back up here, check out the Los Angeles County Museum of Art and the La Brea Tar Pits, which are right around here. Check out another big studio up this way. Then we'll come around the city again from this side and check out some of the sites we just didn't have time for last time. Come down this way, check out their convention center, a big arena. Come down here and check out the USC campus, which has a lot of really cool stuff to see. Check out a special little site I picked out for you guys right around here. And then come down here and see the SoFi arena, which is just gigantic. As we come down here to our... This is where the Hawthorne Airport is right here, so our destination is going to be right about this spot. And I found another little spot by accident that's right down here. If you're not aware of what's down there, you've got another surprise in store. So all that being said, we got a lot of cool stuff to see, and I'll ask that you'll just be patient. If my voice cracks in and out a little bit, I sound way, way better than I did yesterday. I couldn't speak at all. Alright, you guys ready? Well, let's do it. Now that I've taken a few flights in this helicopter, as I was mentioning on that last trip, this is a nice starter. That little G2 or whatever that other one is that comes with the sim might be even better. I honestly haven't even flown that one yet. But this thing's pretty smooth and easy, and it's very simple. And if you're going to try to fly over LA, it's not too bad on the frames per second. And again, everything out here, photogrammetry. Once we get about 1,000 feet in the air, going to look amazing. Other than those pillar trees, which just keep popping up every now and then. You can see some of them down there. And I've had a few requests over the last, I don't know, several weeks. Look at that bus depot down there. I mean, every one of them is modeled. Come on. Amazing. Some people have said, hey, you should go to external views a lot more often. Initially, I was like, yeah, it might break our immersion, though. I'm trying to make it feel like we're actually inside of the aircraft, taking a tour in the aircraft. But this trip may have changed my mind about that a little bit, because even though we're in this helicopter with a great big field of view, there are going to be a few spots where you can definitely see things better if we jump outside. So we'll do a little trial run with that. If you guys like it, let me know. If you prefer to just stay inside of it, let me know that too. Alright, so there's Dodger Stadium again, an add-on. Which, again, if you missed the last flight or you haven't seen every one of our other flights, I'll have all the add-ons that we're using on these flights included in the video description. All of them are freeware except the ones for the hospital landing pads and the Sheriff's Department landing pads, which were in a big pack by Orbix, and I think maybe even this livery for LAPD for this helicopter may have been a part of that. So if you're not seeing this livery in the sim, it was part of that Orbix pack. But I linked that too in case you want to pick it up. As you probably know, if you've flown over LA, there's only one default helipad in the sim out here. And it was one that we landed on that first trip. But I did throw 2 or 3 freeware pads in there too, so you can check those out. Alright, the first thing that we're going to see is right over on the other side of those big white buildings in front of us. Those are a couple more hospitals with a couple more helipads on them if you want to land there. You will need the Orbix pack for that. But on the other side of that, we're going to see a big green square called the Barnsdall Art Park. That was former home to Aline Barnsdall, heiress of a bunch of old money from the Pennsylvania oil rush, which happened during the 1850s. But apparently she was really big into theater and came out to LA in the early 1900s, fell in love with the place, bought a bunch of land out there on an area called Olive Hill, and then hired Frank Lloyd Wright to build her a place in 1919. And we won't really see it from inside the cockpit, which is why we'll jump out. We'll see a building on this side of that square patch. See it right over the top of those buildings right there? That's where it's going to be. And that sits right in between Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard, so we're going to cruise right down that so we can get a look at Hollywood Boulevard. Along with the house, she added some gardens, a theater, a director's house, some dorms for the actors. Seemed to have been a pretty big hit with all the artsy folks for quite a while. And now it seems to be a really big hit with homeless folks. There was a picture of a bunch of homeless people down there on the Wikipedia page. But I think that's kind of become a staple out here, unfortunately. Alright, so on the right side of that property there it is right there, that green spot right above the glare shield. And I'm using both hands because I'm trying to get this thing stabilized. So I got my left hand on the collective and I'm using my right for the stick. So I can't use my pointer right now, which I think will be okay for the time being. So we're going to go right over the center of it. I'm going to jump outside of the helicopter so you can see the Frank Lloyd Wright house, which will be kind of right in the center of it. The one with all the solar panels is one of the later editions, that one right there. But we'll hop outside here in just a second and take a look at that. There's the Frank Lloyd Wright house. You can barely see it. And now you can see it a lot better. Boy, that is nice when you need to get a better view of something, isn't it? Look how realistic that looks. Come on. Okay, so we're right over Sunset Boulevard now. Hollywood Boulevard's over to our right. We'll head over that way. And Hollywood Boulevard is the one that has the Walk of Fame on it, which has all of those stars all over the place. The first one was laid in 1960 for director Stanley Kramer. And today there are 2,771, the most recent being added for recording artist Mark Antony in September of 2023. Alright, I'm going to try flying with my left hand here so I can point to a few things. This is the Capitol Records building, home of countless big acts have recorded there and become very famous. And I think they got their start in jazz. They called it the house that Nat King Cole built. And when I was looking over their discography, their anthology, a lot of the early recording artists were jazz. And this big mast up on the top of it, I did not know this, that flashes the word Hollywood in Morse code. And when they turned that on, they had the granddaughter of Samuel Morse come and flip the switch for that thing, which I thought was just a fascinating little bit of history. Alright, right up here we're going to see the Chinese and the Dolby Theaters. The Chinese opened in 1927, very iconic. You'll also get a better view of that from the outside. You won't miss the Dolby because it says Dolby in huge letters right on top of it right here. And the Chinese is going to kind of be tucked down in here. We'll get a better view from the outside, but you'll see that pagoda-looking thing right in the front of it. This is going to be it right here, and there's the Dolby. You see that? Right down there? There's the Chinese theater. And you can't miss the Dolby. And now, ever since they opened the Dolby, which was in 2001, they've been hosting the Academy Awards there. So there's that. Alright, right at this base of this mountain, right in front of us, Sunset Boulevard, which is the one to our left, is going to, well, it stays Sunset Boulevard, but it's going to become the Sunset Strip, home to all kinds of little bistros and shops and nightclubs. And those of you that are fans of Joe Rogan will recognize the Comedy Store, one of his favorite hangouts when he was out here. And I'm not sure exactly which building it is down there because it's kind of tucked. It's on the other side of the road, the far side of the road. I'm not sure which one it is, though. Alright, this very colorful thing coming up in front of us here is called the Pacific Design Center. And when I first flew over that, I thought that must be part of a studio or something else, but it's not. They started building that in 1975 and have periodically added different buildings, and they named the buildings by the color of them. As you can see, they're different colors. And they added the last one in 2013. And this place is like a really high-end furniture store. And since I like to buy my furniture at IKEA and Walmart, if I'm not just building it myself, I probably never set foot in here. But I bet there's a lot of people around here with plenty of money to buy extremely expensive furniture. But it is modeled incredibly well in the sim. And I don't believe that's an add-on. And just for fun, I landed on that little helipad on top of that green building in the corner. And I don't think that's an add-on either. And it looked great right on top of it. See it right down there on the corner? So you can land on that thing. Okay, all this area over here is Beverly Hills. And here's downtown, historic downtown Beverly Hills. And there is the Beverly Hills City Hall right there. And 5 streets over, we will see Rodeo Drive, also known as the most expensive street in the world. And I think Frank Lloyd Wright built a few of the buildings down there, too. And in real life, Rodeo Drive has a bunch of palm trees on it. In the sim, they look like really bushy top trees. And you'll know you're on Rodeo Drive because it's the one that looks like it has the most trees on it. And there's a building with like a little canyon in the middle of it on this side of it, too. So it'll be the 5th one over. There's the City Hall right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, which may actually be an alley. But there's Rodeo Drive right there. And there's that building with the canyon-looking thing in it. Alright, we gotta take some tight turns here. So this is the Los Angeles Country Club up here, this big golf course, and the Playboy Mansion is right up there at the very tip of it. And I'll show you what we can see of it, which isn't very much. That place is 22,000 square feet, built in 1927. Old Hef didn't move into it until 1974. And he died in there in 2017, but a year before he died, he sold it for $100 million to one of the co-owners of the Hostess company, like Twinkies. And he lived in there for another year. That was part of the agreement, that he could live in there till he died. And then as soon as he was carted away, they started remodeling the place. So you can see this crane they got right here. That's right above the property. And that pool right there is also part of the property. And when we look at the satellite map at the end, you will see that it's all dirt and stuff. They're renovating it right now. So that's where it is, right down there. And there's another little house over here that was a smaller mirror image of the main house that I think old Hef had built for one of his sons. And they bought all that property when they took that over from him. Alright, so here's the UCLA campus up here, and if you saw our first flight, you know that this is the home to the Bruins, but they don't play football here, even though they do have a big track down there. They play up at the Rose Bowl, which we saw on that first trip, which is about 15 miles away from here. But the campus is just beautiful. Opened in 1919, it's a public school. Got about 47,000 students in there today. Gosh, that looks amazing, doesn't it? And there's another add-on. You can always tell the add-on buildings because they're either really light colored or just flat out white. I think that's another hospital there, judging by those helipads. And I'm going to show you guys something at the end that was a major breakthrough for me. If you get frustrated, if you use Little NavMap and can't figure out how to get your add-on airports into Little NavMap, I'm going to show you how to do that. Just figured that out this week. I may be telling you guys something you've known for a long time. And if that's the case, I wish you would have told me a heck of a lot sooner. But we'll get to that later. Alright, this is the Getty Museum right up here on this top of this hill. And this is an in-sim add-on. It looks absolutely fantastic, so you don't need to put anything in your community folder. It'll already be here looking just this good. And this thing was opened in 1997 to supplement the Getty Villa, which is right down there along the coast, about 5 miles from here, and about 5 miles south of Malibu if you kept going north along the coast. I had to pull up just a little bit to slow down some so we could get a look at this, because we're going to take a hairpin turn after we fly by. And check out the gardens. There's like a little pond down in this green area in the middle of it. Just looks amazing. Look at that place. Unbelievable. So cool. And possibly the best real estate in the entire city. That is just amazing. Look at that thing. Awesome. Alright, I don't know what it is about this area from here till we get down to Santa Monica, but this might be the most lifelike strip of land I've encountered in the sim. Something about it just feels and looks so unbelievably realistic and immersive to me. Look at this. Let's see what it looks like from the outside. Is that incredible or what? You know what it might be? In this region, which is rare for LA, I don't see any of those pillar trees. And we're going to fly past a little opening down here on the right. And I was like, what the heck is that? Because there's no houses or anything around it. It's a polo field. I'll show you when we get over there. It's not that golf course over there to our left. It's going to be right up here. Oh, where's my pointer? It's disappeared. There it is. Right up here. Big polo field. But there doesn't appear to be anything around it. I'm sure that was another very expensive piece of real estate. So the villa is somewhere down here. I didn't fly over there to check it out, but it's pretty big, and judging by everything else around here, probably looks fantastic. And here's Santa Monica, and there's the Santa Monica Pier, so we'll head over that way. And you'll see it's kind of got two parts to it. The longer, skinnier part that goes out a little bit further was built in 1909. And it wasn't built for tourism, it was built to dump sewage pipes out a little bit further out in the water, away from where people were swimming. And then in 1916, they built the fatter part, which is a little bit closer to shore. That's called the Pleasure Pier, which boomed and busted for several years until the city finally took everything over in the 1970s. And then after that, I think they had a few big storms wash in and damage that thing some more. We're going to get some tiling out here, but that just comes with the territory sometimes. And I did a little test flight for southern LA, which will be our last tour, and there wasn't any tiling down there, but we were getting up here. It's even going to be on the sand and everything up on the beach. All right, guys, if you saw that last flight, and again, you got to check it out if you haven't, and you saw that Six Flags, you know that that's probably the best amusement park we've ever seen anywhere in the sim. So get ready to be sorely disappointed by what this one looks like. And this is part of the freeware, for now, Any Builds add-on. You can see right up here, there's even a little strip. That's a little airstrip, that little darker colored thing. And I didn't see what it looked like before, but they probably added some of the rides and stuff down there. And even in real life, it's not a very substantial roller coaster. I think this little thing here sticking up is a Ferris wheel. But compared to that Six Flags, whew, well, nothing really compares to that. I'm going to fly down here a little bit closer. And just south of this big pier was the home of the original Muscle Beach, built in the 1930s as another WPA project. They put a bunch of gymnastics equipment, which you can still see. I don't know if it's the original stuff or not. You can see it on the satellite map, and if you know where to look, you can just barely see it in the sim. But I'm not even going to try to point it out. I'll show it to you at the end. But if you grew up in the 70s and 80s and are big Arnold Schwarzenegger fans like I was, this was not the Muscle Beach he was at. That's going to be a little bit further south down at Venice Beach. But this is where guys like Jack LaLanne got his start, pumping iron. Look at that roller coaster. Ooh, and another little helipad down there. See that? That H? Very cool. And you can see their boardwalk right down there. I think that runs all the way down to that last parking lot, and then it stops, but there'll be another one up here at Venice Beach as well. Okay, so Venice Beach is going to be right up here, and this white thing here is a big skate park, which looks really cool. And at this one, in the satellite map, unfortunately did not get modeled in the sim. There's an area where you can even see all the bench presses and everything right out there in the open. And they built like a grandstand around it, so people can just sit there and gawk at all the guys lifting weights, which is definitely iconic for this area. So the weightlifting area is right, this thing right here, this first dark spot, are basketball courts. These are tennis courts over here, and the weightlifting area is right between it. You can see it's just a concrete pad right now. And there's the skate park. Yeah, you see all this popping and stuff we're getting out here, but despite that, it still looks amazing. So when my frame rate counter was on, I'm hovering around 28, 29. In some spots, it even dips into the teens right by downtown. But again, no matter what I picked to fly in, even the simple planes, I could not get it very high, but that's just part of being over LA. This is not a helipad, that is the fishing pier out here. Alright, we're going to fly right over the top of Marina Del Rey here. And it became this size that we see today during the JFK era, but it started as a salt marsh used by the indigenous Tongva people. And now it has mooring for up to 5,000 boats. And there's a payware add-on for this place. Oh, let me dip the nose down a little bit. We're slowing down too much. That's supposed to make all the boats look alright, but one of the freeware add-ons I've got installed is a water fix for LA. And as you can see, we can see all the boats. If you get down there real close, I took a super low pass. They look all jagged in photogrammetry. So if you wanted to take a really, really low pass for some reason, you might pick up the payware add-on. But from 1,500 feet here, looks good to me. 5,000 boats, and they got a few huge marinas like that. So there's LAX right over there. We're trying to avoid their airspace. But you're going to see the airport that we're coming in from, which is, I think, that next set of buildings right there on the horizon. I think this might be Hawthorne here. No, that's the SoFi. Hawthorne's right over here. I can't imagine being an air traffic controller out here. Trying to get these planes into LAX with these other little airports out here. Actually, I can't imagine being an air traffic controller anyway. Alright, see that big plateau in front of us? There's some kind of a park out there in the middle of that, and I could not find any information about what's going on with the rest of that. It looks like a bunch of industrial stuff. And it's a little bit of an eyesore being right here by LA. We got a hard freeze there, and we'll probably get another one when we approach the SoFi over there, because that is a huge and very detailed freeware add-on. So I think when that comes into view, it's jamming us up just a little bit. So we're just going to follow this water canal just a little ways, and I should mention also in that first flight, right when we got into the San Fernando Valley, I said, look down there, there's one of those huge water canals, but after I took a closer look on the satellite map, there were a bunch of cars in it, so that thing that I called a water canal that did not have water in it is a freeway. But I got a comment from someone who just checked out our channel, perhaps for the first time, said he just picked up the sim yesterday, totally stoked to watch the video. And he said all of those trees growing up out of the water canals that I mentioned on that last flight is true to life. He said the dirt and stuff just gets washed in there and bushes and all kinds of stuff start growing in that thing. Alright, our next stop will be Sony Pictures Studio Complex. First filming in 1912, which was the same year that Universal started filming up there when we were over Burbank. And I'm going to see if I can get lined up to fly over a really cool looking auditorium. It looks like a big seashell for this high school right up in front of us. It's going to be right here. Let's see if we can get a good look at that outside. And then here's the Sony studios right here. Look at all that stuff out there. Someone's doing a lot of work, aren't they? I need to remember not to turn my head so fast. That's what's causing the stuttering. There's that auditorium. And that is obviously definitely a water diversion canal. So the first big studio at this location was MGM, also known as Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. And they were running the show from 1924 to 86. And then a couple little places had it for a while, and then Sony bought it in 1990 with their affiliates, Columbia and TriStar. And if you don't know which one TriStar is, that's the one with that flying horse. And they have a water tower too, even though it's all filled in underneath. Look at that. That must be kind of the thing out here. Like, you gotta have a water tower if you're gonna have a studio. Alright, let's see if I can get back down to about 1,000 feet. We'll be a little bit closer to this next spot we're coming up to. So my intention is to come around in between here and right over here somewhere there's a huge... I'm looking to see if I can spot it. We didn't fly close enough to see it. There's a big Mormon temple out here, the LA Temple. I bet that's it right there. As a matter of fact, we're not going to fly over there to look at it because we got to check out this studio too. But I'm sure it probably looks great as well. But back there at Sony, they're still filming some shows you probably heard of. Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. In the past, they filmed King of Queens, Married with Children, Shark Tank for a while, among many, many others. Alright, this next one to our right is Fox Studios, now owned by Disney since 2019. And it started in 1935 as 20th Century Fox. And they produced all of the first 6 Star Wars movies. X-Men, Avatar, Planet of the Apes, Titanic, and Sound of Music, which were 2 of the highest grossing films ever when they were released. And I also saw, we're going to see the Paramount Studios here in just a little bit. They also had something to do with Titanic, so I don't know if that was a joint venture with those guys or what. Alright, let's see if we can get a nice look at this place over here. This one looks like the smallest of all the ones we're going to see. You can always tell which ones are the studios because they have these big warehouse-looking things. And I don't see a water tower down there. Do you guys? Unless it's behind our pillar. Let's hop outside. I don't know. I'm not seeing any water towers. Man, they gotta be so upset about that. And there's that big furniture store again. So I've probably flown this... When I had no voice yesterday, I thought it might be fun to try to do an ASMR flight. You know, just whispering the whole time as I was telling you everything, because this is about as loud as I could get. But it was so relaxing that I could barely keep my eyes open myself as I was doing it, so I figured I'd just wait one more day. Okay, so coming up next, we're going to check out Death Row Studios for all of you hip-hop fans from the 90s. I'm certainly one of those. Founded by Dr. Dre and Suge Knight in 1991. Busting out artists like Snoop Dogg and Tupac Shakur. In this building, just so you know where to spot it, because it's really going to blend in. See this 3-sided building here? It's going to point right at it, and there's going to be a little L-shaped building that'll also point at it, so that'll show you where Death Row is. And I'll point at it as we go by, too. And then we're going to check out the Academy of Motion Pictures Museum and a big car museum. Alright, so there, see that pointing right there, and then there's this little L-shaped building right here. So this building right here is where Death Row Records is. And the Academy of Motion Pictures Museum, which might still be under construction because that was opened in 2021, is going to be right here. And then this is the Peterson Auto Museum right over here. And right here is the big LA County Art Museum, I believe. And this is the La Brea Tar Pits. which I've always been fascinated by. I did a book report on that place a long time ago, and I figured it was probably somewhere way on the outskirts, but as you can see, it's right in the center of town. Look at that thing. That's pretty cool. I wonder what that is. But these tar pits are situated right above a fault line where crude oil just bubbles up out of the surface and starts evaporating away until it becomes asphalt, and it's been doing it for about 50,000 years, trapping all kinds of ancient megafauna in there, whose skeletons they have found and put on display in a local museum. A lot of that stuff has become extinct now, too, which is pretty cool. Well, not cool that it's extinct, I guess, although I'm not real keen on running into a giant ground sloth. Alright, so Paramount Studios will be next. And I think they do have a water tower. Thank goodness. And I just realized that little NavMap is not tracking my flight, which is probably a good thing I've taken this so many times, because now I know where to go. So Paramount was also born in 1912, known as the Famous Players Film Company originally. Some of their biggest hits in the 70s were Grease and Saturday Night Fever, much to John Travolta's delight, I'm sure. In the 80s and 90s, they busted out classics like, well, all of the Eddie Murphy hits. Beverly Hills Cop, all that kind of stuff. Footloose, Pretty in Pink, Top Gun, Crocodile Dundee, Airplane, Friday the 13th, the entire franchise. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Forrest Gump, Apocalypse Now, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the list goes on and on. Alright, they've got a more traditional-looking water tower. Look at that little guy. And down here, this is the Paramount Theater. And for some reason, that was kind of ringing a bell to me, and I thought, well, they must do something really big down there, but it appears to be just a really big movie theater now, and it's not all that old. I think on this site, at one time, they did have an old movie theater there that was the largest in the world when it first opened. But that's it right there. Paramount Theater. Okay, so we'll cruise back down here, follow this little freeway through here, and check out a bunch of sites at downtown LA, swing around the southern side of it, see some more stuff, then check out SoFi, and then we'll come on in. And if this is your first time here, well, again, welcome. But if you want to take this flight just as we are, I always include our flight plan that we're taking precisely as we're taking it in our video description as well, so you can pull that into a little NavMap and then pull it from there into the sim. Again, you'll want to adjust that a little bit if you're going to take an airplane, because this is definitely geared for helicopter-type turns. And if you don't know how to do that, I also have a little tutorial down there. It's about 10 minutes long that'll give you the basics of little NavMap. Yeah, this sickness that I had was so strange. All of a sudden, my throat started hurting just a little bit, the tiniest little bit. The next day, my voice was completely gone, had no fever, no congestion, no body aches, nothing. Went completely silent yesterday, which is the first time that's ever happened to me in my life. And then got up today and felt pretty good again. Every now and then my voice will crack some, but it's not too bad. Alright, we're going to have several things to look at here, and they're all going to kind of be buried in the dark shadows of this area. We'll swing around the other side and might get a little bit better look at it. But the first one is the Disney Concert Hall, which opened in 2003, and that's going to be this thing right here, and it's a very strange-looking building, all kinds of angles and stuff. The inside of it looks really wild, too. You got to check out a picture of that if you're into that kind of thing. And then right next to that is a big building where the LA Opera was, which I think may be the 4th largest in the world, I think I read. They opened that in 1986. And then a little bit further over here is another very angular-looking building, and that is the Cathedral of Our Lady of Angels that was opened in 2000. This is it right here. Opened in 2002. So there's the Disney place, there's the LA Opera, and then here's the big cathedral. And that replaced a structure that used to be there, which was probably more traditional-looking, that was severely damaged in the 1994 Northridge earthquake. And there have been some complaints about a Catholic church looking like that. The traditionalists were not happy. But you can see that is a strange-looking building. And there's the LA City Hall right there, 27 stories high, and they do have a big observation deck, which you can go check out on the top of that. They built that in 1926. And then over here we have the Union Station, which is the largest passenger rail terminal west of the Mississippi. That was built in 1939. That's it right here. And look how nice and rusty all the covers are of these train areas here. You know I love that. And we're probably right over the spot where we took off from at this point. Alright, so let's get ourselves turned around here. Let's hop out again real quick. Oh, look at that. Amazing. Love it. God, that looks incredible, doesn't it? Thank you, photogrammetry. But no thanks for the performance problems that come along with that. Look at all these helipads. Again, every building, even the short ones, you can see they have helipads on them. All right, so I'm going to try to kind of cruise over the tops of these buildings because we're going to check out a few things over here. This is the big LA Convention Center, which looks really, really cool. This is the Crypto.com Arena, which used to be called the Staples Center. And that is the home to the LA Lakers and Clippers basketball teams and the Kings hockey team. And this whole area right over here on this side of it is called LA Live, and I think they have a bunch of places where they do concerts and stuff down there, but you'll see a Microsoft logo on the top of this building. It's not run by Microsoft anymore, it's something else, but when they made this map, you can still very clearly see the Microsoft logo on top of that. And I think that's a big performing arts place too. Looked like their website was showing a lot of concerts and stuff going on in there. And this still says the Staples Center on top of it, but now that is the Crypto.com Arena. And then here's the huge convention center out here, which looks amazing. See that Microsoft sign? Awesome. All right, up next is the USC campus. Opened in 1880, and that one is a private school. They got about 50,000 students today. And what really stuck out to me when I flew over it the first time and every other time is the rose garden. They got a huge rose garden down by all the museums and stuff they have out here. And for all of us aviation enthusiasts, they've even got a couple planes parked out here by their science museum. They got a history museum, a science museum, and the Space Shuttle Endeavour was out here until last year, and I think it's still in the building, but they're moving it somewhere else, so they're building something else for it. So let's see what we can spot out here. Okay, this right here is a DC-3, and then they got a Lockheed A-12 trainer, which looks like an SR-71. You see the DC-3 there? And there's an F-18 right down here, which is too treed in, you can't really see it. But check out this thing. Look at that. You see that right there? You need a big screen to see it. Looks just like an SR-71. I'd never heard of an A-12. And they got a couple other planes down there, too. They got a Starfighter. There's Memorial Coliseum, which looks amazing. Oh, and I forgot to show you the Rose Garden. There it is right there. Check that out. Awesome, isn't it? But that stadium will be the first to host 3 Summer Olympic Games after they arrive there in 2028. And that is, of course, the Trojans' home stadium. And it was home of the LA Rams from 1946 to 79, until they moved to Anaheim from 2016 to 2019, and now they're playing at the SoFi, which we'll check out in just a minute. All right, I did not have this marked on my map originally, and then when I flew over that dome in front of us, I was like, what the heck is that? So I flew out there to check it out, and it turns out it is a dome. But wait till you see what they have written on the parking lot. This is called the Faith Dome, and it was on the campus of an old university. I can't remember what the name of the university was, but they bought it in 1989, I think. And that's where they have their services in there. 28,000 people. And when they built it, it was... And I think they built it in 89, so maybe they bought the campus a few years before that, and then built that thing out. And when it was built, it was the largest dome church in the U.S. But apparently they built a bigger one because Wikipedia just said at the time. All right, so look at the parking lot to the right. I can't recall what it says, but... it's kind of a does what it says on the tin thing. It's like, this is the Dome Church or something like that. Alright, it's going to be upside down, so I'm going to turn my head as we fly by it. Okay, Crenshaw Christian Center, home of the Faith Dome. Unbelievable. And I was a little bit surprised to see there was a big church out here. I thought this whole area had kind of walked away from any kind of religion, but... apparently they got a pretty big congregation at that place. Alright, so now we'll check out the SoFi, and may get another freeze as we come around here. And that was finished in 2020, and I don't know when the add-on was made, but it's going to kind of look like some of it's still under construction around the outsides of it. And off to the right there is the Forum, which is a multi-purpose place now, but that was also home to the Lakers and the Kings before they moved up to that other place we just looked at. And this looks really good. And it's really, really big. And it's home to the Rams and the Chargers today. And I read they're trying to build it all out, kind of like they were building around that speedway we saw up in Kansas City. They're putting a casino out here and a bunch of shops and hotels and building residential neighborhoods all around it. So I think they got pretty big plans for this place. And there's LAX again right in front of us. So we're going to come down here after we look at this and then cruise kind of parallel to this airport. And just imagine, again, trying to run air traffic control for planes coming into this and coming into this place. That would be a headache. Look at that. But you know, when we look at the satellite map at the end, It really does kind of look like this. There's a spot right here where you can see a little bit of a photograph. Didn't get cut off, but it does kind of look like that. The parking lot's a little bit grayer, and that building's flat. But that stadium looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Alright, so I got to use both hands again, which is fine because we only have one more thing to look at, and you won't miss it, so I'll tell you where it is. As we come around here, I'm going to fly parallel to that freeway right over there to our left. I'm going to come up around this side of the airport. So I was looking at the satellite map for this place, and I noticed there was a huge X on top of one of the buildings down at the southeastern end of the runway, the other end of the runway from where we're going to be coming from. And that is the headquarters of SpaceX. I did not know. I thought maybe they just had a building out here, but that's where their headquarters is. And they arranged all of these solar panels up on top of that to look like a huge white X, which is really cool. Alright, see that big X over there on the other end of the runway? It's just set off by one set of buildings. We'll get a better look at it here in just a second. And yep, I know it doesn't look like there's a lot in the distance, but that's because we had to turn our terrain level of detail down so incredibly low to keep from just stuttering and jittering our way through this flight. So on the next trip we're going to, and I've already checked them out, check out the Knott's Berry Farm theme park, which I think was made by the same guy that did that Six Flags, so yeah, looks amazing. Fly over Disney World, the Angels Baseball Park. Disney World looks kind of weird to me. It's also an add-on. It's like hyper defined. It looks a little bit odd. I'll let you guys tell me what you think once we get out there. But the Berry Farm looks amazing. And then we'll check out the Port of Los Angeles, or Port of Long Beach, which also looks just incredible. Look at that building. There's the SpaceX building. Okay, so we're going to come right over. You see those athletics fields right in front of us on this side of the highway? Whatever the sheriff's office has out here, there was a mark on the Google map, but they didn't have a building or anything, so it must be just a tiny little substation, and then they have this helipad out here, which is what we're going to land on. But it's going to be right on the other side of... You see that? There's a softball field and then a baseball field, and it'll be on the other side of that. And it's really big and really blue. Once we get over it, you won't miss it. So let's drop our collective, start slowing down, coming down. And the challenge with the Big Bell helicopters like this is that the console is pretty big compared to some of the other ones we've been flying, so you really have to kind of land to the side or you'll lose sight of your pad as you're coming in. So we'll see if we can do it. I feel like each landing is getting just a little bit better. My objective is to eventually get to where I don't have to use the assist, but I tried that again while I was sick, or while I couldn't talk. And it's still just a total mess, so gives me something to look forward to strive for. Alright, there's the pad. You see that big blue thing? That's what we're aiming for. And I don't want to get turned too much or I'll lose sight of it. And once we're down, as always, we'll check out the satellite map, show you exactly what we looked at, where we flew, and I'll give you a little preview of what we got coming up for this next trip. Inching ever closer, guys, to 1,000 subs. Once we hit it, we will turn on the Discord server. And one of the things I want to do with that I think will be really cool is do fly-alongs, not necessarily for recorded flights because it would just take too long for everybody to get into formation and everything. But of course, I always do test flights out in these areas. And if I can find someone from an area that we're flying over to give me a tour and get a group going to do that together, I think that would be really cool. And then maybe if anyone wants to watch that without all the details of the sites, because I'll just be looking for where the sites are, we can load that up on the Discord server for people to watch if they want to. Alright, I wasn't concentrating enough, so now I'm all over the place. Alright, okay. That's what I get for talking while I'm doing this. What I'm not great at is you can go from hover like this to all of a sudden it just drops real fast, and then if you try to yank it back up, it kind of shoots you up in the air. Alright, that's close enough. Oh, how about right there? Yeah. And thump. Cool. Alright, we did it. We're down. Alright, so let me try to turn this thing off, and this takes forever to slow down, even with the rotor brake. So let's turn the throttle off. We'll get everything shut down, but even using the rotor brake doesn't seem to slow that rotor down. Generator off, battery off. And I'm just going to let it wind down, so you'll just have to listen to that in the back, because watch what happens when you pull the brake. Not really anything. And then when you let go, it lifts back up again. All right, so you can see my helicopter's frozen out there for some reason, which is totally fine because we found our way out here without any problems. All right, so here's where we left from, the LA County Men's Jail. Oh, and let me show you guys this real quick. I'm going to make a tutorial video just for this in case you don't know how to do it. So let me put the airports back on real quick. So look at all these helipads. These are from either the freeware add-ons or the add-on packs that I've got. Without any of those, it would have just been this one spot where we landed last time, which was the top of the bank tower, which is probably right there, or maybe over here. So I was like, that's ridiculous. So what I had to do before I got all these put on here was, like, let's say I wanted to land here. I just had to fly over here, make like a hard right turn so I would know that that's where my destination was, and then come back to an airport, because you can't load it into the sim unless you have a destination or a place you're taking off from. So I had to do the same thing over here. It wouldn't even start me there. So what you can do, once you get your add-ons in your community folder, so don't have the sim started, put your add-on airports into the community folder, then start the sim. Once it's fully loaded up and you can see them all in the sim, then come up here to your scenery library, hit load scenery library. It should already be on MSFS 2020. Just hit load. It'll ask you a few questions. Very straightforward. Just keep clicking through it. It'll probably take, well, depending on how many you've loaded up over the years, maybe 5 minutes to get them all in there. And then just hit, I don't know, apply or something like that. I'm not going to go through the whole process now because you don't want to wait for 5 minutes while I do that. But that's how you can get them all in here. And then if you take them back out, you can refresh it again and it'll remove all the airports. But that is just fantastic, because if you've seen all of our other flights where I had an add-on airport or I was just landing at some random spot, I had to do that deal where I was directing the flight path over to somewhere else. So that was not cool. And this is very cool. All right, so we left from here, cruised by Dodger Stadium again, which we took a great look at during our last flight. All these other bookmarks, by the way, if you missed that first flight, are the stuff that we checked out up there. All these studios and everything up here. The Rose Bowl is over here. Came over here, and here's where the Barnsdale Art Park is, and there's the Frank Lloyd Wright House right there, which you can see if you jump outside of the helicopter, which we did. So here is Sunset Boulevard running this way. Here's Hollywood Boulevard, and if we zoom way in, you can see the stars on the ground. You see them all there? On each side. And there's even some up here, too. You can't really see them in the sim. I tried really hard to spot them, but I just couldn't see them. But you might be able to. I don't know. Here's the Capitol Records building, which looks like nothing from the top like that, but you could definitely see it in the sim, although it was a little bit angular. We'll blame that on the photogrammetry. To spot the Dolby and the Chinese Theater, just so when you know you're coming up to it, it's right across the street from the big football field for Hollywood High, and you won't miss that. But here's the top of that pagoda for the Chinese, and then again, of course, you won't miss the Dolby. Then we came around this way over here and checked out the... Nope, that's not it. Where is that big building with all the weird shapes on it? I can't even find it because I didn't bookmark it because it was so huge. But the furniture store. You won't miss that because it's impossible to miss. And then here's where... Oh, here it is right here. And there is an helipad on that. Okay, so that's cool. That's the one you can land it right there. And they have another one over there too. But you will not miss that as you're flying by. Here's the Sunset Strip. And if you really want to spot the Comedy Store, it's this little one right here. I think this is called the Beverly Hills Tower, and you can see that in the sim. So it's just right down the road from that. That's where the Comedy Store is, if you just feel like you have to see it for some reason. Beverly Hills over here, and here's where Rodeo Drive is. And you can see that's all palm trees, not big bushy trees. And there's that building I was showing you with a little carving in the middle of it. So that's how you'll know where Rodeo is. All right, so here's the LA Country Club, and then here's the Playboy Mansion. As you can see, they're totally renovating that right now. Even the pool doesn't have water in it, which is the only thing we could really spot other than that huge crane above it. And I think this is the house, again, which is a smaller version and a mirror image of the big one that Hugh had originally built. Let me take the centering off so it doesn't keep doing that. So that's where that is. Then we came over the UCLA campus, which looked just amazing. Came up here to check out the Getty, which also looked amazing. Pretty much spot on. It was a little more colorful in the sim. What is that? They got like little Mickey Mouse ears or something in there. But that looked really cool. If you want to fly down to check out the villa, which is where the original place was, here it is right here. So just a little bit further out, not too far off the track we were heading down. And again, it probably looks great. All that area looked really, really good. There's that polo field that we flew past. Okay, came down here to check out the Santa Monica area. And there's that strip if you want. Let's go ahead and just take the airports off again. There's the pier. There's that rinky-dink roller coaster, which, you know what? Other than there being people all over the place, that's kind of what it looked like in the sim. There's probably where the merry-go-round is. And then here's the original Muscle Beach. And you can see now all the gymnastics equipment that they've got out there, but they don't have any of the bench presses and things like that unless they stick some out here. But when we get down to the current Muscle Beach, down at Venice Beach, there's the skate park. Here's where all the bench press stuff is. So there's the big basketball courts, there's the tennis courts, and you can see it better in the Google map. These are all workout benches here, and you can see they got like bleachers for people to watch them, which is incredible. And then there's a little fishing pier coming out there. Here's the Marina Del Rey, which looked really good. There was the little water canal. We were following up here to Sony Studios. And if you want to check it out, here's that outdoor amphitheater that they got for that high school. or the auditorium or whatever it is. But here's Sony. Not real big, is it? Not real big at all compared to some of these other spots. Cruised up here, and here is the Mormon's Temple right here, which I bet probably looks pretty good. Even from a distance, it looked pretty good. So if you want to check it out, just keep going straight. Maybe you could circle around it this way. And here's the Fox Studios here, which did not have a water tower. Feel really bad for those guys. And then we came up here to check out Death Row Records. So there's that building pointing right at it. And then here's the L-shaped building. So between those two, you should be able to spot it if you really want to check it out. And then right over here is the Peterson Automotive Museum. They said they got about 400 cars on display in there, which is quite a few. And then there's the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, which has, I think, like 11 million film artifacts in there. And there's whatever that other thing was that we spotted. And there's the big art museum. La Brea Tar Pits. And I couldn't find where the museum was, where they're displaying the skeletons. It's not this place. I think it's called the Cage Museum. And I couldn't find anything in this vicinity that was called that. So I don't know where that is. And I'm kind of wondering if underneath whatever that is, you can actually see some tar bubbling up, which would be amazing. Here's Paramount, and they do have a water tower right there. There's the Paramount Theater, and I was looking for that little red kind of pavilion in front of it. I didn't spot that in the sim, but there's the Paramount Theater, which appears to be just a movie theater. And then we came back down here to downtown LA, and then here's the Disney place. If you want to take a real good look at that, it does look good if you can get the right angle with the sun, where it's not in shadows and stuff. That's a really neat looking building. It doesn't look like much from there. Performing Arts Center, where the LA Opera is. There's the Our Lady of Angels, which we could see a little bit better in the sim. And then we came over here. There's the Union Station, and here's the big City Hall right here. But man, they nailed that. Right down to the rusty coverings of where the trains go. Nailed it. Awesome. Largest passenger train terminal this side of the Mississippi. And here's Skid Row, which I didn't mention because we flew right over it. This is one of traditionally the largest homeless encampments in the world, and it's probably up about that level again right now, knowing what's going on in LA. And I zoomed way in to see if I could see any tents, but if this was shot before all that stuff really blew up during COVID, you don't really see too many, but there is a spot down here that looks awful. Look at all this trash down here. That looks like where you'd find a bunch of homeless folks, but I don't see any tents set up anywhere, so I don't know what part of town that's really going on. Maybe all over town these days. I don't know. There's the Crypto.com arena, which they've taken the Staples thing off of it there. There's the LA Convention Center, and there's the faded remnants of what was that Microsoft logo. And that's what it looked like in the sim was the Microsoft thing. Okay, so here's the USC campus. Let's see if we can spot some more of those planes. All right, so there's the campus there. Here's the Rose Garden, which looked awesome. And there's a history museum, the Science Center. Now, what I couldn't see in the sim, they've got an external fuel tank here for a rocket, so maybe that happened after they did the map for the sim. And in here is where the Endeavor was. And again, maybe they're putting it over here. I don't know. This is called the Museum of Narrative Art that they're building right now, so I don't know what's going in there, but probably not a space shuttle. Here's the DC-8, and then look at this thing. That's that Lockheed trainer. The only thing I've ever seen that looks like that is an SR-71. And then there's the Starfighter right there, and then there's the F-18, which we could not see in the sim. There were too many trees. Memorial Coliseum looked awesome. And then we came down to the Faith Dome. Yeah, awesome. Oh, we should have looked to see their gardens look pretty good too. I didn't even think to look at that. I was too concerned about that parking lot. I'm sure you understand why. Here's the SoFi, which looked pretty much like that. It was a little bit lighter in the sim, but that was pretty much spot on. There's the Forum right there. And then we came down here to check out Hawthorne Municipal and the SpaceX headquarters. Look at that place. I had no idea that they were headquartered right down here in LA. I think they have 13 offices all around the world, but that is their main headquarters. And then we flew over these fields here and right down to our little Sherriff's landing pad and called it a flight. Absolutely awesome. Okay, so the next trip we'll probably take off from, let me turn the airports back on. I think what we're going to do is take off from this little helipad right here. This all looks just amazing. Freaky D did it again. Just nailed this port. All kinds of huge tanker ships and cranes all over the place. We'll see the USS Iowa, which is parked over there. Fly out here, check out this stuff. And then we got a little bit of a hike to come up here to where the parks are. But this is where the Knott's Berry Farm is, which looks absolutely amazing. They got a little water park over here, which doesn't look nearly as good as the rest of this. I don't think they did that part up. You can tell it's a water park, but this looks incredible. I think it was the White Arcade that did those. Forgive me if I'm wrong about that. Then we'll check out Disneyland, which you can tell it's Disneyland, but it just looks a little bit strange. And then we'll check out the stadiums over here. And I don't know where we're going to land. There's another gigantic couple of buildings here. I don't know what these are. That's why I've got a blank bookmark, but I'm going to look into that because they are huge. You can see them from miles away. So I had to come over here and see what was going on with that. And then maybe we'll just land at John Wayne here. We'll see. But that's it. That's our central and western LA flight. Had an absolute blast as always. Learned all kinds of things. And now I have my bearings when we're hearing about Los Angeles in the news, seeing all this stuff going on out there. Now we'll know where it is. Can't wait to see y'all again in the skies. Later.